Okay, let's get into it. So first thing we're going to need is a movie file in. Now, I already have a movie on my desktop just ready to go, so I'm going to use that one. But you could use any video that you have. Next thing we're going to do is, just for the sake of continuity, I'm going to go ahead and put a null just in case we want to end up adding anything in between these two. After our null, we're going to put a rectangle. And now this rectangle is going to be the trigger zone essentially, right? So let's make it a little bit smaller. And what we're trying to do is every time the kite passes through this area, eventually we're going to have it trigger a note, right? So first we need to define the area. Let's move it up just a smidge here. All right. Now we're going to take the fill alpha all the way down to 0, bring up our border width a smidge, just so you can see it. And then let's make the border color white for now. There we go. Now, we've defined a zone, right? The next step is to add a crop. And we are going to crop exactly to that rectangle that we just created. There we go. Ah. Now, this doesn't have to be perfect. That's good enough, actually. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put a catch and a difference. And I'm going to make these a little bit smaller, just again for the sake of keeping everything nice and pretty. And in one line. Definitely don't have to do this, but I just like the way it looks better. Okay, now let's go into our catch, and we're going to bring down our catch size. 3, and let's bring up our step size to 2 maybe. So what this is doing is it's taking the frame before this. It's kind of catching a frame and holding it there for a second, right? So what we want to do is find the difference between the caught frame and our original video. And then we're going to put in a threshold. See how every time it passes, we're getting this kind of difference between this and this. And then let's bring our threshold down so we can actually see what's happening. Doesn't look like anything yet. Let's bring it down a little bit more. And then see. There we go. Now every time it passes through, our threshold is showing nothing except for the difference, right? So now what we're going to do is put in an analyze top. You don't have to change anything in the analyze. Then we're going to go top to chop. Again, you don't have to change anything. Let's put a filter after this just to keep it nice and clean, smooth it out a bit. Perfect. And then after that filter, we're going to add a logic. And this logic is just going to say anytime this changes, it goes from off to on, we're going to change this to off to on. So it's just like a off-on command kind of thing, right? And we don't have to change anything there either. We should see. Let's give it a second. Our threshold doesn't want to catch it. Let's see. Bring this up a smidge. Sometimes you really just have to fidget to get the right. There we go. And yeah, passes through. Logic is on the entire time that there's a change, right? So now we have our trigger officially set up. It is time to make the trigger actually do something. So let's go to TDAbleton. And I have 12, so I'm going to go to 11 plus. And I'm just going to drag in this package. Now, if we go inside here, we're going to copy the Ableton MIDI and paste that outside. The next step is to give it somebody to communicate with, right? So let's go ahead and open live. And I've already done this, but start from 0 here. We're going to grab a TD MIDI. And if you don't have this in your computer yet, it's because you haven't installed it. And if you guys want, I can put a whole new video of how to get TDAbleton set up in TouchDesigner as well as Ableton. But for now, I'm going to assume that you already have it. So now we're going to drag the TD MIDI into our MIDI track, and now let's give a sound to our MIDI. And it could be anything, right? Let's just play around. Yeah. Put in music box here. And then go back to our Ableton MIDI, pick music box, and then TD MIDI. Now these two are officially communicating. Now it's time for a little bit of code. So we're going to go to a chop execute, and this is going to let us write in a Python command. And what we're going to say, you can click this little star here to edit this code. And this is a code that I already wrote previously. All it is saying is that when the logic that it is connected to turns on send MIDI note 60, which is a C, at 100% velocity, right? And then when it is released, we're going to send MIDI note 60 at 0 velocity, or turn it off, right? The last step to make this happen is turn the off to on switch inside the chop execute, and we should start hearing sound. Let's see. There we go. It's working. So now they're communicating. But this is just with one rectangle, right? Every time this guy passes through there, we get a sound. What if we want more rectangles? Well, what we could do is just copy this and paste, and then every time we do that, we're going to change where our rectangle is, right? Because we need to set up a new zone for triggering. So let's move this guy. Let's keep it the same size and just move it a little bit down, and let's say to the left. Let's see if it's gonna, maybe not quite so much to the left. Yeah, let's put it about there. Maybe we could make it just a smidge smaller. There we go. And then this crop is still cropping like a different area, right? So let's go into the crop and have it crop this new rectangle that we set up. There we go. Okay, now we have a new trigger zone. And it's automatically doing it. All we need to change is maybe add a different note in here. Let's put like 83, which is a B. Higher, but and now it should trigger a different note. Is that notes triggered? There we go. Now we have two separate notes triggering, right? How, though, do we get this to be more visually interesting? Well, what we could do is we could take these rectangles, and we're actually just going to remove them. Or not remove, but disconnect. And we're going to move them down a little bit so that they're in the final output, but then we actually don't need them in the trigger zone, right? Because it's not the rectangle that is the trigger zone, it's the crop. The rectangle is just the visual reference. So let's now get another null and a composite. And we're going to composite our original video, right? Plus these two rectangles. And then we're going to make an out here. Now, you'll see in the out we're not seeing anything, right? What we need to do is, well, first we need to make sure that these rectangles still have the same resolution as our video, right? So let's go change the resolution of these rectangles. And same thing here. Oh, let's divide this one by 2. Brilliant. Now everything is the same resolution. In our comp, instead of having multiply, we're going to go to over. So these rectangles are over our video, right? There we go. We could put this out there so we could visually see it. So what if we wanted to, say, change the color of these rectangles every time that the logic is being activated? Well, what we could do is just go actually into these rectangles, and we're going to change our border color. Whoops. Or we're going to use the expression max, which means it's not going to be more than ever, right? Because we can't have it be more than 1. And then 0, because if it's more than 1, it doesn't really count anything in color theory. Minus OP, not minus, and then OP logic 1. Zero times 0.2. Now it should. There you go. Turns blue every time that logic is triggered, right? Huh, something funny is going on here. I'm going to relocate that oh, the rectangle's gone. Shoot. Okay, well, that's not going to work. Command Z. Oh no, that's right. Sometimes if you can't visually see the logic, it doesn't really work. But that's actually not the problem here. Let's put this back into the Oh, you know what the problem is? It's that we need to change this. Nope. Your threshold is a little bit too high here. There we go. Now it's only seeing it, or only activating anything, only activating a trigger when there's a real change, because these clouds moving can sometimes make those notes go off, right? So now let's put that same expression into rectangle 2. But instead of logic 1, we want this one to be looking at logic 2. There you go. And then all you have to do is rinse and repeat, right? Just keep copying these things. And you can make as many rectangles or squares as you want, reactive, right? The one other thing I will say is that this definitely works better when you have the panel open. So let's switch this so that we can open up that panel. Again, with the resolution. And 1920. Divide both of these by 2. Now, we're actually going to turn this off. And this will help with our FPS, right? Because this is going down lower than we want it. And we're just going to open up our panel. And there you go. Now you can make as many squares as you want. You could go back into Ableton. You could add more tracks, make a whole song of it, right? And then, yeah, just make sure that every time you add a new one of these, you change the MIDI note in here, and you change which logic it is reading in the color of the rectangles. There you go. Thank you so much for watching.